What's up, everybody? It's Ethan, and today I'm excited to be talking about a very important, curious thing: balancing the two extremes of mortality. I'm going to start this off with a little story. As you may know, a few weeks ago, I got a sketchy MRI. My doctor read the scan and thought maybe I have a tumor growing in my brain again. And all hell broke loose around me. I started to share the news with my partner, with my family, with close friends, and it was really challenging to share that news, to see people responding to that. I spoke about that in previous videos, and to just grapple with this question of mortality showing up in sharing that I maybe was re-engaging with my disease and having to go back into therapy and treatment. The good news was that second scan that I got to confirm that disease was happening actually said it wasn't. So I was clear. But in that period of time of about 4 weeks between those two scans, I felt like I had to hold a consciousness of being healthy. I felt like I couldn't really accept the possibility of me re-engaging with this disease in a meaningful way, of my tumor growing and my possible death becoming more proximate. And so during those 4 weeks, I just did everything I could to meditate, to stay positive, to be healthy, to just envision having a clear scan and being able to live for 100 years, right? That's the goal. Let's get to 100. Meanwhile, most of the people around me were dealing with this possibility of difficult news and the possibility of having to re-engage with my cancer and my mortality and reconnect to the truth that this disease can come back and it can grow. And so once I got that clear scan, it was almost as if the world flipped. Everyone around me breathed this huge sigh of relief and celebrated and were in this state of joy. And I, on the other hand, started to realize that I had been holding something together, this image and this vision of being healthy, that once I got the news that I actually was healthy, I broke down. I lost it. I realized that I wasn't okay. I wasn't okay through those 4 weeks, and I hadn't been okay before that. And even now, I'm still not fully okay as a person in this body dealing with mortality. There's a lot of challenge for me around acknowledging that not okayness. But it was so interesting during those 4 weeks between that first scan and the second one, where I felt like I had to stay okay for myself and the world, so as to make sure that second scan was clear. I would do my diet, I would exercise, I would meditate, I'd do all the things I needed to do to stay good, so that the next scan, I was okay. And then once I got that clear scan, things fell apart, like I said. It was rough. And I'm still processing that. And I really grappled with this kind of two extremes. Either you're experiencing grief and death and mortality in a really deep and challenging level, as a lot of my friends and my partner and my family were doing when they heard about this initial potential issue coming back. Or you're me and you're in denial. You're not really giving it space to breathe. You're not really confronting that possibility because you don't want it to grow. You don't want that to manifest, or you don't want that to become your reality. So you block it out. So there's these extremes. There's denial of death, and then there's kind of confronting death and the grief and the darkness and the challenge, but also maybe a little bit of the power and the depth of reality in that confrontation, as well as the power and the depth of reality that shows with manifesting or visualizing health, right? There's power in both of these extremes. But the question that comes up is a question of merging the two and getting into a state that could be aligned with the concept of double consciousness. I just learned about double consciousness today in a podcast from my friends at Honestly Speaking. Check it out. They were interviewing the Reverend Dr. Jackie Lewis in New York, who was talking about W.E.B. Du Bois' double consciousness theory, which speaks to the idea that as Black Americans in America, they had to exist in their identity as Black people, but also with the recognition of how they were perceived by white people, by the ruling class. And that double consciousness question kind of comes into a lot of identity questions, whether it's related to gender and existing in the polarity of male and female and finding yourself on a spectrum, or as it relates to your other maybe religious identities or other identities or belief systems. We're getting into the world of both and. We're getting into this spectrum, this non-binary state. And so double consciousness starts to come up, and what I'm really interested in is the double consciousness of mortality, at least in these videos. And thinking about how can we as a people embrace the intensity of facing mortality every day, and the grief and the fear and the rage and the anger and the terror and all the things that come with that darkness, and also the beauty and glory of life. How can we exist in the moment and be present and conscious of our death constantly, with every single breath, and also live a full, meaningful life and make plans for the future? And think about family, and think about generational passing on traditions, and passing on wisdom and knowledge and celebrations and travel and things for the future, right? How do we hold those poles, those extremes at the same time? And this isn't a video with answers. It's a video highlighting this challenge. So often in our nature, we go to a pole, we go to an extreme so as to preserve or work through something. It could be intense grief, or it could be intense denial or joy. And sometimes that joy can keep us out of maybe that not okayness. And for a while, I think I was operating from this place of projecting a lot of joy, a lot of love, but not considering maybe some of the more dark, challenging, not okay things happening with my body, with my disease, with my diagnosis, with the potential of recurrence, which came up real hard over the last few weeks. So this is really a question, it's a challenge, it's how do we start to manage double consciousness around mortality so we can live in the present and be fully here and now, and simultaneously make plans for the future and envision a long life of health and joy and love and connectedness and community and all the great things that come with these bodies. So that's a question I pose to you. It's a question I have. It's something that's going to be coming up, and it's a main theme for Camp Death, the project we're working on that I'm really excited to share with you in the next video, that'll illustrate what we're going to be doing in that program and how we're going to start to approach this question of double consciousness and getting into states of awareness where we can work with our mortality and see it as a blessing and a source of power and a source of connection amongst others. So thanks, hope that was helpful. If it was, post a comment. Join us at extremist.love as usual, and maybe see you on Clubhouse if you want to join us in the mix there, having amazing conversations every week. And I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day or eve wherever you may be. Take good care. Peace.